Welcome to Innovate SFU. This is the second of our interdisciplinary dialogues taking place on entrepreneurship and innovation at SFU. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the audience and their role in all of this, as their participation here is in itself a testament to the work being done to open up entrepreneurship and innovation across the institution. The purpose of the evening is to explore the entrepreneurial path. Unconventional and often unintentional, every entrepreneur has a unique story to tell. Our guest tonight is no different. An alumni of the Beedie School of Business, Greg Malpass is the founder and CEO of Traction On Demand, a company he started in 2006. Greg was one of the first people trained in Salesforce when it was still a small company trying to make inroads, and now Traction On Demand is a CRM consulting and software development firm with unparalleled expertise in Salesforce.com implementations, data quality, and marketing automation. I'm going to let him talk a little more about the company in a minute, and he'll probably have a few things to fill in around the gaps there as well. The largest Salesforce.com consulting group in Canada, one of few globally with a perfect record. Greg was the 2013-2014 Business in Vancouver Top 40 Under 40 recipient. He's grown the company from scratch to now over 80 employees, and I suspect I'm probably falling behind on the number. 130 employees since I got recent data from the internet, which you would expect to be recent. And much of that's really grown in the last couple of years. So I guess that kind of explains the trajectory as well. They're recognized quite widely for having a really innovative culture. It's a place that people love to work. They were just recognized again as a top 10 company in Canada for places that people want to work. And a company that's really got a belief in creating shared value for the founders, for the employees, for the community they're a part of. And they are a certified B Corporation, which I know many here have looked into, one of the first 100 in Canada, and the country's only certified B Corporation for Salesforce.
Yeah, in the Salesforce
in the Salesforce industry? Yeah, great. So, please, welcome Greg.
Thanks.
So first thing I'd love to do is stop talking for a second and let you introduce your company in any way you'd like.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's interesting. So as Shawn kind of clearly outlined, we don't really keep our website all that too updated. There's a lot of things to do when you're running a business that's growing about 100% year on year. So what I do and what my company does, so Traction On Demand is, Salesforce.com is a platform. It's just like you would look at .NET, you look at Amazon S3. What's happening in the world is we're moving the client server infrastructure into shared environments. And so what we do is we actually allow companies to actually build software in those environments. And the simple focus is to help those organizations become more efficient. So just to give you guys a little bit of the variety of the type of work we're doing. You know, on one side, we're working with Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, so local, very, very successful organization, multi-billion in revenue. We are moving 22 of their core systems, basically what would represent 80% of all their operating systems, all into the Salesforce environments. Their auctions will operate on Salesforce. All of their gate check-in, their HRIS, everything will run on Salesforce.com by the time we're done. So that's a 3-year, $16 million project, to give you kind of a sense of magnitude. On the other side, we work with a company called Release the Hounds. And Release the Hounds was a really cool entrepreneur who saw that there was an opportunity with dog walking. And so we built a system for him to manage all his franchisees and his fleet of vehicles and dog walkers. And so people can check in the web, they can see where their dog is real time, they can see what their dog's been fed for that day, and they can arrange a pickup and a delivery for their dog. So crazy variety. You know, I'll go on and I'll explain more stuff that we do as we get deeper into this.
Your wife Michelle as well, she's obviously entrepreneurial and very supportive. And I wonder if you just talk a little bit what it's like working with a partner in what it can be a fairly intense business and trying to build some stuff together.
Yeah, so Michelle is the human equivalent of a carbon credit to me. So she, her entire career has been focused in the nonprofit space. And when we started thinking about having a family or having children, one of the things I was struggling with was how are we going to build a real kind of social underpinning within Traction. And so she started helping me out here and there. And so we actually started a separate kind of side division of Traction called Traction for Good that she's responsible for. So it's funny, like I would actually almost say we don't really even work together. Like it's
parallel?
It's church and state. She has a budget and she does what she, basically does a whole bunch of good with it. And my job's to stress her out.
Okay.
Pretty much.
And was that conscious? Like, did you feel like it was important to set up separate domains where you could work, or that's just kind of the way things worked out?
Accidental.
Yeah.
No, totally accidental. Actually, if you asked Michelle, she probably wouldn't even think of us working together. She's typically in maybe 1 or 2 days a week.
Okay.
But she's kind of just very no ego, just kind of gets things done. It's pretty makes it very easy.
Good. Excellent. And do you guys have any kids?
Yeah, we have 3. We have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 0-year-old.
Okay.
So
you're not that busy.
It's foggy right now. It's crazy. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, good. And I'm assuming you probably also are perfectly happy whatever they'd like to do with their lives?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, the one thing I will absolutely make a very, very conscious effort around is doing exactly what my parents did with me, which is support them and just believe in them all the way.
Yeah, awesome.
You just don't, it's a lot of parents protect their children from what they think will be failures or from things that they failed at. And I think that that's the greatest gift a parent can give is actually giving kids the chance to safely fail.
I think that's really insightful and harder to do than it sounds. I have a hard time giving my dog the space to fail and make its own decisions.
No, it's true. Well, you want to, of course, there's safety considerations. Sure. Like if Luke wanted to pick up a chainsaw and give that a shot, I might maybe temper that one a little bit. I'll dull the blade a little bit at least. But, yeah.
Okay, great. What was your first job? What was your first paid kind of work?
First paid job? The one that I would say, it was actually Safeway. Okay. While I was going to school, high school back in Nelson, I had to save some money for university. And so I was a bag boy at Safeway. And then I actually filed a union grievance because a girl got hired into become a cashier before me, but I had seniority. So then I got to be the first male cashier at Safeway in Nelson. And I still remember every vegetable code, every 4-digit code for every vegetable. I can correct any checker at any Save-On or Safeway to this date.
Are the codes all the same?
All the universal 4-digit codes North America wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start thinking. We'll test them later.
Yeah.
Then we got an apple with the code on it or something?
4083.
That was an easy
It's
one.
It's a curse. I still know my air miles number. I can't. Get rid of it.
So I think you got into it a little bit, like activist at Safeway from day one in a sense, but did any other influences from that first job or anything that you still remember in terms of how it turned you into who you're going to be? I don't know how long you were in the role.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know if, the Safeway union environment was interesting. It was very frustrating because it wasn't an environment where you could, even no matter how hard you worked, there was a pecking order and a lineup. And so it was certainly opened my eyes to the fact that I did not want to work in a union environment ever. In fact, at one point during my university career, I thought I was just going to become a union buster because I had so much frustration with those types of environments. So I think there's definitely kind of let's say the negative forming. But on the more positive side of that was there were certainly a lot of people, even within that environment, that really kind of were encouraging me to kind of break free a little bit and not come back after school.
Okay.
Because that's the cycle. At that time, and these numbers are going to seem like nothing, but people were typically my age were making like $5 an hour, and I was making 12, right? And so that was actually a ton of money. And it was a lot of people that were in that environment actually never went to school because of the golden handcuffs of Safeway.
Right. So enough to pay your rent and take care of your family, and then
And buy your Firebird.
Yeah.
It's Nelson, right?
Perfect. So that's actually a decent segue. What was the first time you remember being exposed to the idea of entrepreneurship or the concept of being an entrepreneur? Yeah,
so it was actually after my first semester at SFU. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was pretty sure I didn't want to go back to Nelson that summer. I wanted to just try something and stay in the city. And not knowing what I could do, I was actually strolling through AQ at the Burnaby campus and stumbled upon there's student painters and student sprinklers. And the student painter guys wanted like $600 for a franchise, but the student sprinkler guys wanted $250. So I actually gave them $250. They gave me a VHS car magnet, and the VHS tape had it was a home time episode showing how to install underground sprinkler systems. A car magnet that said student sprinkler on it, and basically a bunch of 3-ply carbon sheets so you could create invoices for customers. And I started my student sprinkler franchise. Yeah.
How'd that go?
You know what? It was incredibly lucrative. So I started by doing this franchise, but quickly realized that the group that had started this organization they weren't able to really support it. So I worked within the banner of Student Sprinkler probably for a month. Okay. And then I called them like, hey guys, like you're not doing anything. I'm not going to give you 18% of my gross for not doing anything, like for a tape. So I'll give you your money back and just let's part ways. So then I started a company called Progressive Lawn Works, and made waterproof cards. And so I went to an auto auction, bought a 1983 Nissan Sentra for $1,300, and drove through the province and looked for dry spots on lawns. And it was when I was working, I was making over $1,000 a day.
Wow.
It was pretty good for a student.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it wasn't too hard to save money for school after that with that.
Okay. And how come you're not a sprinkler baron now?
I still am. I still actually, if any friends want to install sprinklers, I'm very happy to assist them with the manual labor because it's so fundamentally opposite to what I do today on a normal basis. Yeah. But after sprinklers, it was great, but obviously it was manual labor. There's no long-term scale to it. And I wanted to go to Toronto and just see what life was like over there. And actually, I was a member of ACE, so the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs. And ACE had their kind of, is that site now? Or
so
is it?
ACE is now Enactus here, right? Somebody nod? Yes, Enactus, which we just heard a little bit.
Yes, okay. Awesome. And they have an annual conference. Do they still have the annual conference in Toronto, right? And the competition and everything else? So I went out, met one of the judges, this guy named Justin Poi, and he offered me a job in Toronto. So I thought, gosh, what a cool opportunity to go actually work for a real entrepreneur and see that side of the world in a brand new place. So.
Cool. Yeah. And what was the job? What were you doing?
It was, he had an advertising agency. It's kind of a creative agency, branding, advertising kind of stuff. So I was an account manager for him. And then I grew to be the director of client services. It was a 6-person company, so.
Great.
Titles were easily achieved in
smaller
awesome
companies.
on
the business
yeah,
card.
look good in the business card. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. And so I'm going to leap forward and just ask you a bit about founding Traction, but what's the time difference there?
Oh yeah, so Traction founding is 2006. Yep. Back, that was Toronto and stuff was 99 to 2001. Okay. So there's a couple stints working for Cassette Communications in Vancouver, and then also working for Crystal Decisions. Yep. So everybody probably knows who Crystal or Business Objects or SAP, of course, as they are now.
As they move forward, yeah. Great. And so can you just tell us a little bit about the inception of Traction on Demand and where it came from, just those early days? Yeah,
so my journey was, I would not say is one with absolute intent. Like things happen, and I think the real defining things are whether or not you actually pay attention to them. And so what happened for me was I was at Crystal working within the inside sales team actually, and I got a call from a couple guys that had left. Hey, we're gonna hang our own shingle. We're gonna start a little company. You're a pretty smart marketing guy who knows sales too, so we'd like you to maybe join us as a founder. And so I jumped on board. There are 4 founders of this little company called Blue Tide Management. And what was really cool about it is actually the founder of Crystal Decisions, Greg Kerfoot, had such kind of a gratitude to these gentlemen that he actually gave us one of his little houses on the water in West Van to start, which is a pretty neat spot to start a business. And so we, from scratch, kind of figured out what we were going to do. We decided we're going to build sales organizations for software companies. That's what the other 2 guys were really good at. And I was going to basically go in and do all the consulting so the marketing teams could better support the sales teams. Okay. Sales and marketing, if you guys don't know, it's like water and oil. The marketing organizations unilaterally in all companies are very frustrated with the salespeople because they generate leads and the salespeople in their minds don't follow up with them. The salespeople are extremely frustrated with the marketing people because they burn hard-earned money and produce not good leads worth following up. And no one's accountable to anything. And so we started kind of bringing those together and worked with a couple of companies. One was Borland, and which is these guys, 25-year-old software company. They invented the right click and had a patent on it. And so Borland was a customer, and we started working with them, and we built this inside sales team within Borland, and within a year, it became the most productive sales organization in that entire company. And what was interesting about it is the real linchpin was producing or finding some simple software. We found this little program called Salesforce.com. It was a very small company in the Bay Area that was doing some pretty innovative stuff, meaning hosting customer data in the internet, which just seemed crazy at the time. But it was easy to administrate. I self-taught myself on how to do it, and all of a sudden we could make the sales guys would go to one place. They could see their lead. The marketing team could make sure the salespeople followed up on the leads, and voila, accountability was born. So do you want me to just keep going?
Sure, yeah.
I may as well just finish this thread. So what was interesting is at the time, there's a hidden lesson in this one. So it was there's a divide in camps in this and growing politics in this 4-person organization. 4 people growing politics. 2 people were thinking, hey, great, we have these customers, we can afford to pay ourselves, but software companies have multipliers. We need to produce software so then we can sell the company and we can be rich. On the other side, there's Andrew and I, we were kind of like, well, yeah, but service is paying the bills, and it's actually pretty interesting stuff, and we're learning quite a bit. And it's not, who knows about the multiplier, but maybe we'd actually figure out what we should build based on what the customers are asking for. So that tension grew and grew. So for 2 years, I was part of Blue Tide, and eventually I was given kind of the ultimatum of hey, either you do marketing for us to build our software product and we hang up this consulting stuff, or we just have to part ways. And so I said, well, okay, I really like this consulting stuff. Can I continue to work with these customers? And of course, that's not their choice. It would be the customer's choice, but yes, permission. It wouldn't have been right for me to have bypassed them. And so they said, no, absolutely. I gave them all my shares back in Blue Tide. And then I went to in Coquitlam, the business bureau, spent $300, incorporated a company, which would later cost me about $30,000 to correct all the mistakes that I made. So just talk to somebody about share structure and all that crap before you do it. And also make sure you always renew your articles, because your company can actually be taken away from you, even if it's worth $20-30 million by the government, because you didn't file a $65 piece of paper. So another good quiet lesson in there. So what I ended up doing was calling those 2 customers and saying, hey, I'm going to hang my own shingle. It's a bit of a risk. Like I'm not sure what's going to happen. I certainly can't keep you accountable to this, but would you be open to maybe signing a bit of a maybe 4 or 5 month contract with me, just to give me some confidence that I can pay my bills, and then and we'll just go from there. And so both customers said, you know what, absolutely, no problem. So it was Borland and Jigsaw were the 2 companies, and hidden in there it was just relationships with people. Like they're still friends, the people in those organizations to this day. So what happened from there? So this is 2006. Between 2006 2010, I just continued to learn how to use the software, Salesforce.com. People at Borland went through a bit of an exodus. Next thing you know, Adobe, Apple, Symantec, Microsoft, eBay, PayPal, these were 2 separate organizations at the time, all called and all wanted me to do the exact same thing I did for Borland. And so next thing you know, I was working with 25 of the largest software companies in the world. They're all customers, and I had all their data. And I was doing the exact same system for all of them from a townhouse in Port Moody. And it was, and then what I started doing actually is seeing, okay, well, this is interesting. I have all this information from all these software companies, and I wonder how they're doing compared to each other. So I started pulling that data down and doing benchmark analysis, so I could show them how they're performing against each other in a whitewashed environment using a Crystal Decisions product called Excelsius. And then started selling that actually as just a recurring service for $10,000 a month to each of these companies. So just so they could see how they were performing against each other. So it was just one thing led to the next, led to the next.
Interesting. Okay. Fascinating. Also leads well, I guess, into the next question. Just if you can just tell the story a bit of the last few years, the growth trajectory, and then also maybe a bit of the funding, kind of finance story of the company, how you funded that growth and what it looked like.
Yeah. So, well, my funding story is an interesting one because it's a little different than a lot of the ones that you hear nowadays. So 2010 rolled around. I was just working too much. It was killing me. Like I was working maybe 35 customers at once, and just it was absolutely relentless. But I had never managed a single human being in my life, and I had no intention. When I started Traction, my actual intention was I don't want the politics of, I just want to do great work, make money, have fun. Super simple. And I correlated that to don't work with other human beings. Right? Work with them far away in California, and then have your friends here, and things will be glorious. I got called in, and the world is small. I got called into a meeting with some Salesforce one of the Salesforce sales reps at a company called CanPages, which is now Yellow Pages. CanPages was actually in the 5th floor, 2700 Production Way, which is where our office is today. So I sat down with the CEO of CanPages. He had this grand vision of a system that he wanted. And I did what every good entrepreneur said, is I just said, yeah, absolutely no problem. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, how much? And I'm like, $167,000 for us to do that. And he's like, you have a team? I'm like, I absolutely have a distributed team of people around North America. We work remotely. I'm plugged into the ultimate experts in this ecosystem. So they signed the deal. And then I said, well, oh my gosh. And so there was one developer that I worked with that was a really smart guy, and we call him the Dream Crusher. He was just brass tacks, but so smart, so capable. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, I'll pay you for 6 months. I don't know if there's anything beyond it. Here's the amount of money I can pay you. Would you be interested in helping me on this short-term contract with no promise of a future? And he's like, interesting proposition. Sure. I'm kind of bored of what I'm doing right now. So he showed up at my townhouse at that point in Port Moody. Michelle gave him some slippers and a water bottle, and we started building the system for CanPages. So that was January 2010. So that was the first person. So just to give you a sense of the trajectory from there, it went from 1 to 5 in a year. Then it went from 5 to, I think it was 21 in the next year. And then went from 21 to 48 the next year, and then went from 48, and then we're over 130 now. And so from a funding perspective, there's not been a dollar of debt. 4 years of kind of working away, I was able to put away a bit of a war chest. While I've been very open to debt personally, I've always been fearful of debt in business, because I just don't want anyone else choosing my fate. And that's the one thing is money in business, and lenders and investors are very unpredictable. There's external factors well beyond your control. So I made a very conscious decision never to make a move that I wasn't able to fund with cash.
Okay.
So it was more work, more people, more work, more people, more work, more people.
Yeah. So Bootstrapped, all your own cash earned revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is a rarer story, particularly in the tech industry these days.
It's easier in services.
Yeah.
So services is easier, and I'll be the first to admit that. Although now we launched 2 software companies because we've now built the war chest up, so we can afford to actually fund our own software development firm.
Okay.
So that's basically you just know you're going to basically invest a minimum to launch a SaaS company. They say it's actually a $10 million bank, but where we got, it actually only costs us about $400,000. So I don't know what those guys are doing. There's lots cheaper ways of bootstrapping a SaaS company.
Got it. And SaaS, too much for definition for the group?
Sorry, software as a service. So this is just basically creating technology that runs in these hosted environments.
Great. We have a question on pivots or somewhere in that growth trajectory. Did you run into any walls and make any really big changes in the company, or has it been pretty... Just trying to keep up?
Pivot's an interesting one. So I do have an advisory board. I brought my advisory board on a little over a year and a bit ago. And so one of the guys just so happened to be a gentleman by the name of Norm Francis. And Norm Francis is the founder of Pivotal and ACPAC. So two very kind of successful software companies in the earlier kind of generations of software companies in Vancouver. So the reason I bring that up is Norm always said, he's like, I hate the way that this whole pivot word's being used now. Like, pivotal was supposed to be like, kind of fundamental paradigm shift, but now it's used as an excuse for entrepreneurs when they screw up their idea and they're like, we gotta go that way. So what I would say is the business has been in a total state of continuous change. Okay. So I would say there's not been any like fundamental. But here's a good example. So we used to do a lot of work with a company called Marketo. It's a marketing automation platform. So looks at what you do in the web, sends you emails, and tries to trick you into purchasing. Not that sinister, but sounds better when it's put that way. So we were working with Marketo. We had become kind of one of their most, top tier partners. They were bringing us into all kinds of deals. Everyone was happy. And then Salesforce purchased a company called ExactTarget for over $1 billion. And Salesforce called us and they said, hey, what are we going to do about this? And we said, what do you mean what are we going to do about this? We're going to do the right thing for our customers. So until you get your technology up to par, we're going to continue down the course. So then Salesforce rejudged our partner status and did a bunch of more kind of, more aggressive business things. We continued to work with Marketo, but in the end, Salesforce put enough money into ExactTarget to help that platform now supersede Marketo, and we were behind. Okay. So that's a good example, one where we could have been a little bit more proactive, maybe listening, maybe getting a little bit off our ego a little bit earlier. Right. Would have been a good move there. But I would say no fundamental crazy shifts, just continuous adaptation. It's like fine tuning. You do it every day.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And just on that story, it's interesting you referenced it as getting off your ego a bit earlier, but it was also kind of sticking to your values at first and trying to do the right thing for the customer.
Yeah.
Not just that you had this.
Values are huge, and I think it's if you go into the values of Traction are actually a product of the employees of Traction. So we actually survey everybody in the company, figure out what their values are. We collect all of their core values. We do a whole bunch of analysis on and kind of word articulation on it, and then that actually forms the company values. And that exercise is tremendous. And we have hoodies. We just did some custom hoodies a little while ago, and the values are in the inner pocket. But we even in every meeting room we actually have essentially this decision matrix for how we make decisions in the business, and anybody can call the decision matrix. So if, it seems like an innocuous, hey, should we have chocolate milk today? Probably not a good use of the decision matrix. Or should we work with this customer? They manufacture weapons. There's a really good one. Should Traction work for companies that manufacture weapons for killing people? And so somebody brings the decision matrix, and the first question we say is, would the action to proceed with this challenge any value on this board? And if the answer is yes, then the decision's made. It's no. So values everything.
Having as a decision screen that's actually used regularly in the organization.
Absolutely.
Powerful. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to want to get back to kind of culture and values in a sec.
Absolutely.
Maybe just on the trajectory from before, how through that growth, particularly this really rapid growth, how's your focus as a CEO kind of had to change across the organization?
Oh my gosh. Well, so you hear the term chief cook and bottle washer, right? So I was the first person certified in Salesforce in Canada, and it was the first 500 in the world. So I knew how to use the system, and nobody in Vancouver was doing Salesforce work. So in the beginning, I was the person that trained everybody. I was kind of the person architecting the solutions for our customers, and then I'd have the team kind of in the execution side. Then I moved into more of a sales role, right? So I had a team that could really do a great job executing, but someone had to set the vision for the customers. But then all of a sudden, and the next generation of I guess being the CEO of the company as it grew was I needed to be the cheerleader, right? So someone to kind of make sure that the team was rallied, make sure everyone was excited about what we were doing. And then very quickly after that, I had to become the recruiter. So I had to basically go and mine and find net new people. So it's amazing. I don't get to touch Salesforce anymore, which is a bit of a bummer. I ran my wedding on Salesforce. It's just a fun piece of technology. So every once in a while I do meddle with things and stuff. But I think that's the one tough thing is you have to. It's a very being a CEO is actually a role of servitude. Like I serve my team. Like those are my customers, and I do truly believe in employee first or team first company, then customers, and then you look at outside of that. But yeah, I think it's your job as a CEO is to fill whatever hole there is.
Plug the gaps, keep the team going in the same direction.
And you still have to, of course, drive the vision, and kind of. But the thing is, the vision of the company is really, if you have really smart people around you, it's actually just more around kind of gathering and aggregating the vision from the people that are there, and making sure that the credit gets distributed very cleanly across the team.
Excellent. Good advice. Personally in the company, biggest failure, biggest regret?
Biggest regret? Oh boy. That's a very difficult question to ask an entrepreneur,
right?
Because you can't have regrets because here I am. It's pretty good, pretty happy, and everything. The hardships led to the successes. I would say any regrets I have sit with in situations where I wasn't paying enough attention to how hard certain people were working within the business, and the business just took their heart away and they had to leave. They quit. So there's 5 people that have quit since the inception of the company. That it really bothered me because it was a true failure on my side. So that would be the big one.
Yeah.
We once had a customer that was there's certainly were opportunities. Like one time we had a customer, they're really mean. So we decided before we kind of went to the final end of things with them, I went in and we bought their project back from them. So gave them $50,000, even though we were about probably $80,000 deep in the investment with them. Wrote them a check, gave them all their money back, made them sign a document that says we never existed and you guys go your way, we'll go our way, but this never happened. So there's a lot of opportunities to make poor decisions.
Yep.
Another one was a company called Canlan. So you guys all know, how many of you play hockey? Anyone plays hockey? No? You? Okay, there. Okay, that guy.
Talking to him.
Yeah. So we did all the systems for Canlan, which is the largest ice hockey rec league actually in the planet. And so we quoted it a $60,000 project to build this portal. It cost us $350,000. So that was another one where we could have been we could have walked away. We had all the legal right to do that, wash our hands, just get away and stop the bleeding of money. But we finished it. And we invested in it $300,000 on our dime. We made a promise, we kept it. And Canlan is actually, they'll probably be, they're not only a huge, what we call FOT, friend of traction. I can probably attribute about $4 million of an incremental and referred business because we did that.
And so, would you call that was a misquote off the bat? Like, was it largely your responsibility to fix?
That was 100% my fault. Oops. The quote said, "We will build a portal for $60,000." So another piece of advice for people: maybe don't get so excited about the early numbers. Yeah. Make sure you actually assess out what you're planning. So that would be a fair mistake there too.
Okay. Any other big lessons learned about the sales side or the marketing side? Sounds like you had marketing chops coming in, but anything else really jump out at you?
Yeah, nothing beats doing good work. Like period. You can build an amazing website. You can beat your chest all you want. At the end of the day, where you'll be held to task is in the quality of the work that you do. And there's 2 things. Number 1, do the best work you can, which seems so obvious, but you will be stretched super thin, and you'll have to take priorities. Next step, when you are in a situation where you're forced into start taking stock of priorities, communicate very clearly to your customers and share your struggle with them. Right? Find a human side of things. Typically, they'll want to help you and figure it out with you. and you certainly can mitigate some risk for them. And then the last thing is just if you're an entrepreneur, the one benefit we have is everyone is moving so much through organizations, right? And people go through their careers. And as they go through their careers, guess what? They typically get in more senior positions, and if they're more successful, they get moved and they get poached. And what is the stat? Like 15 companies or 20 companies by the time you're 40 now or something? It's just ridiculous. Yep. That means if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing the same thing, you have 40 customers out of one person if you do a good job, right? So just ignore brands, focus on people. That's all it is. And that is 100%. When you look at traction from a sales and marketing perspective, you might say like, well, first of all, we didn't even know these guys existed. And then second of all, why don't, if they're growing this quickly, why is their website not updated? And why, so quickly. Well, and the big one is because 100% of our work is inbound. Like people call us and they say like, hey, can you do the same thing for us? Or we heard about you. And it's not like little guys, like U.S. government called us last week, or LinkedIn and Twitter just bought a SaaS product off us, all through word of mouth and referral. So tap that first, tap that network first, and then when you really have a clear understanding of what you have, then apply the marketing dollars, and then apply kind of the powder.
Yeah, the direct connection to the do good work. As long as you're doing really great work, then the business will come. Yeah. Great. So we talked a bit at the beginning, and you've alluded to, but just the culture that you've managed to build and how important that is to you, and just what you'd like to say about that.
Being an entrepreneur, you have the ability to create your work environment, to actually fully form the company that you want to work for. And the thing is, there's a couple things. It all starts with the people that you attract into your business. So Traction's culture is, of course I'm biased, but I think is nothing short of incredible. And it's interesting because you get kind of stuck in it, so it's nice to get some external factors. So Charles Chung from Vega, Brian Schoonower from 1-800-GOT-JUNK, there's a whole kind of network of really great CEOs in town. And we all kind of invite each other to each other's business every once in a while, and we do a bit of a gut chat, like, what could I do better here? Which is one really great piece on the culture side. But when it comes to people, the repeated lesson that we've had is the first thing you hire on is cultural fit. And what cultural fit is it's not looking for someone that likes the same things as you. It's looks the same as you and acts the same as you. It's finding people that you would like to get to know better. Period. Really simple. Next gate is you look for intelligence, right? So you want, next thing, of course you want people that can grow and adapt. And how we measure intelligence is it's one of two things. Either people can be extremely hard workers, and they might not be the naturally gifted genius, but they might have to really work hard at it and be really committed, or maybe they are the natural genius. How you measure that is we actually make everybody who comes into Traction do a demo. Doesn't matter what the role is, what your function is. You actually have to implement Salesforce.com, and then you actually have to be Traction and demonstrate it back to us. And then we get to be fictitiously whoever you want us to be and ask you really hard questions about why Traction is a cool place and why you work there and how all this kind of good stuff. And so that we can really see the quality of the demo, and then using systems, we can actually see how much effort they put into it. So if any of you guys ever do apply for a job, we know how much effort you're putting into your demo because we track you on our website. And then score you relative to each other. You gotta love data. Then the third thing we do is what we call a culture interview. And the culture interview is we actually take 3 other members of the team and we say, hey, look, you are going to be responsible and accountable for this person's success. So you have first right of refusal on them. So they take you out for breakfast. You're not allowed to talk about business, not allowed to interview them. It's just have breakfast, talk about stuff that's interesting. And what is amazing, still just blows me away, people fail culture because they come in and they're like, oh, the CEO's not here. Oh, my boss isn't here. So, meh, right? And they treat the team poorly, and that's that. It's done, and they're blacklisted, and it's pretty definitive. The other thing, there's a whole bunch of other systems around culture that we have in place. The way we do our probation, we pay someone $2,000 to quit anytime in the first 3 months, which is stolen from Zappos.
Yeah.
I am not shy to steal great ideas from other organizations. That's I would say 70% of traction is just a whole bunch of really, really smart people's ideas all aggregated together.
Yeah. Wired up in a new way in your business and
Yeah.
harnessed to your vision.
Yeah, and you have to experiment.
Yeah.
Some things just you try them and then you're like, oh, that really didn't work.
Yeah.
So you undo them and you apologize and then you try something different.
Yeah, great. Experiment, kind of tolerance to risk within your own business, not just kind of on the business overall as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about B Corp and B Corporation and why you registered as one, and maybe just a bit about what it is for the.
Yeah. So B Corp stands for Benefit Corporation, and basically what's happening is, and I'm sure you guys are kind of seeing this. More and more organizations are kind of saying, hey, like, look, we should really be a little bit more responsible and accountable for the broader impact that we have in the world. And so this is consideration of how are we helping our communities, what's our considerations around environment and stewardship, how are we engaging with the world around us, and are we leaving the world a better place or a worse place, would be a really simple way of putting it. What drew me to B Corp, so B Corp you do a survey, there's a whole kind of grading, statistical analysis, you have to answer questions like how much money does the highest paid person in the company make, and how much money does the lowest paid person in the company make? Where are all your suppliers? Do you source locally? They do a whole bunch of carbon footprint analysis. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff around benefits and how you treat your teams, and also your customers. And so at the end of the day, you get a score, and you're basically in or you're out. And if you're in, you actually have to change your articles of incorporation. So the thing that really drew me to it was, this is actually going to, as the business grows, there will be times where I may not even be aware of the decisions we're making, and whether or not they're going to be aligned with the original core values of the company. And so what's great about B Corp is it actually gives me enforcement. So I have unilateral enforcement across my business to make sure that we continue to kind of maintain the ethical standards that are so important to me.
Yeah. And it seems to weave pretty closely with the culture and all the rest you're trying to build as well.
It does, yeah. So we've done a whole bunch of other stuff, like the way the traction is set up. We have the core kind of consulting business, which is, it's not going to double every year anymore. We're kind of at that peak, so we'll grow 40 to 60% per year. And then we've also got Traction Labs, which is basically software products. So building technology, and we also have a small venture group also in the business. So that's where we actually invest seed capital in great ideas of team members, so they can become entrepreneurs. So that's my real BHAG, is 10 years, 100 companies.
Coming out of employees and team who want to build their own ideas.
And the way we structured our whole ESOP plan, so long as you stay within the family of companies, you can maintain your traction shares. And you can poach people from all the different companies. So just think of all the different opportunities that start getting created from people. And one of the great things, if you work with people that you really like, really what's important is the work has to pivot, but you don't want the people to pivot, right? That's the brutal thing. You change your job, you have a great team, everything else, be like, I want to do something fundamentally different. We're creating an environment where people can do something fundamentally different, but still do it with the same people that they know and trust.
Awesome. Just you as a founder and B Corp as a movement or as an emerging trend in business, I think a lot of people interpret it as some sort of sacrifice in terms of how you're going to take on your business, or you're going to have to give some things up to try and do good on the other hand. Like, how does that land with you, or why don't you think we see more of them?
I think actually, so what we do, so the category that we're in, we have about 1,600 competitors. So my number one competitor is Deloitte Consulting. My number two is Accenture. Number three is CGI. Like, these are huge companies. And what's interesting, so this goes back to the first interaction with Michelle in terms of figuring out traction for good. When you refer technology companies into customers, the technology companies will write you a check. And it can be pretty significant. Like, the first check I got from Salesforce was $20,000 US. So I just did what I thought was right. I got a check for $20,000. And this is a time where $20,000 would go a long way. So I stuck it in the visor of my car and sat there for about 3 weeks, and it just ate at me. That it was almost like kind of winning the lottery, but not really deserving to, and it just felt incorrect. So I talked to Michelle about it. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this money. Like it would be it's great, like it's good money, like put it back in the business and we can hire more people. But I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of weaving a lie. And I think it would demonstrate if someone really, you have to operate in the concept that everybody has access to all the information. Like that is also another just really good business rule. There are no secrets. So everything will always leak out. The truth will always find its way out, and you just don't want to get caught in a lie, right? Because then actually you have nothing, because you have no ethics. So I didn't want my customers to see that I was making money off the back, right? So I went to Michelle. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this, and she's like, well, if it's conflict money, you have two choices: give it back or give it away. And so we started talking about it. I'm like, well, gosh, we could do a lot with this, like $20,000 going into nonprofits, funding, the Take Youth at Risk Foundation. We could do some donor matching stuff. We could put a bunch of money towards our team. So I took that money, and then we actually did a Christmas card campaign and we had the team vote for the charities that were most meaningful to them, which ones they wanted to support and had significance to them. And then we put those charities out to our customers and said, basically, look, we could buy you some sort of tchotchke or some sort of swag or a sweater or something, but instead, we've taken this money and we're going to divvy it up between these 4 charities, help us figure out how much goes to each. And so they all kind of clicked through this little thing, and next thing you know, we sent it to, I think it was probably about 100 customers at the time, and I got 100 replies. And everyone was like, this is absolutely, this is amazing. And it created this incredible loyalty. And then the next round of calls I got a call from Salesforce, and they're saying, hey, this is amazing. Like you're giving this money away and showing that you chose to basically recommend us because we're the best technology, not because we're paying you off. Can we talk about this more? For sure, absolutely. And then I started getting so the vendors were super happy, and then also and the team also, like, the greatest gift of all is the gift to give. Like, it's super simple, but we just don't do it enough. And not everybody's going to be in a situation in the earlier stage of the career to donate to charities or do that kind of stuff. But this was empowering the team to actually direct funds to organizations that were meaningful to them. So they were able to then share that to their friends and their family. And it was just that program became actually probably one of the leading differentiators of our business in a time when no one knew how to differentiate these businesses. So yeah, there's Shift, the time we're very similar size to a lot of the Toronto firms. There's Shift, there's Innovate, and Traction out west. And people were choosing to go with Traction because they thought we were better people.
Awesome. Yeah. Competitive advantage while doing good.
Yeah. No, it's
not a sacrifice.
No, and it has to be stitched in early, because if you try to add it in later, it's very difficult. And you see this with larger organizations. It doesn't have the authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move into a few more just personal questions and takes on entrepreneurship. Who's your favorite entrepreneur or innovator all time?
Well, I'm going to probably be the same. It's going to be the same person that most of you guys probably think. It's like Elon Musk's just so rad.
It's getting to be an easier question, right?
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of, the reason I have such an admiration and respect for him is there's a deeper purpose behind, right? Banking for the unbanked was PayPal. You start looking at, we got to find a way to get off this planet. We have to find a way to make this planet potentially sustainable. And it's just, I'm lucky enough to own a Tesla, and the last software release, there's like a Easter egg, so you could like hold down the logo and type in 007, and it converted all the images of your car into like the James Bond underwater car. like who does that? Like what CEO would be like, hey guys, that's awesome. I was thinking maybe we should just totally screw with the UI of every production automobile we have on the planet. I don't know how to get away with it. But yeah,
Okay.
so
Good answer.
tremendous respect for him.
Okay, great. What scares you as an individual? Feel free to answer from business to spiders.
Interesting.
That's mine.
I have, snakes.
Snakes?
I am petrified of snakes. Like, I don't know what happened when I was very young with snakes, but they give me the heat. Just even right now thinking about them makes me uncomfortable. But in terms of business, like, does anything keep me up at night?
Yeah.
I think the thing that scares me, it isn't if let's say if Salesforce got hacked and the whole environment became unplausible and everyone was like, the cloud is dead, it's over, we're all going back to, like, we would just have a very actual powerful pivot. I think the thing that scares me is that if I don't evolve the business fast enough to keep the opportunities in front of the team. Like, right? So you start losing one person, two people, and then you can actually, you can fire up an exodus. And that's all we are. All we are is a brain trust of great people who work well together. But that is the thing that really scares me the most. And to mitigate that, there's just never enough time, but I do my best to just walk around and sit beside people at their desks and help them. And just try to make sure I have a personal connection with every person. And it's, a lot of people say it's impossible as you scale past 100 people, you just can't remember names. There's this whole thing, it's called the monkey sphere, and your brain's too small to remember that many people. But it's baloney, like you can. And I think just having that personal touch and just showing people you really care makes that big difference. So.
I think easy to take for granted, like how quickly a culture can turn, or how quickly people disengage from the work if you don't take it really seriously.
Yeah, you have to. It's awkward conversations. Like, you have to pull that stuff out and create. You want to create an environment for people to ask the really hard questions, and I hear there's some hard questions in here too. So, like town halls and ask anything. Or we do this thing called the Greg's Grill. Whenever new employees join, I take them out for lunch. A small pot of 6 people. I was like, you can ask me anything. Like, we can talk about whatever you want, and there's no truth I'll hold back from you. And that kind of stuff it really sets the tone.
Yeah, great. Well, if you'll come deal with my spiders, I'm happy to come on a snake call if required.
I will gladly trade you spiders for snakes.
Perfect. If not this, then what? What profession, or what next business, or what's the other thing burning in your brain? Or do you have any room?
No, I'm kind of doing it a little bit, right? So we have a whole bunch of the software companies will eventually eclipse the services business, probably in the next 2 to 3 years. But then the other thing is just, like, in terms of more hobby-ish, I love building things, and so I'm usually I really want to learn how to weld. So I actually might go to BCIT and take a night class, because and Luke is 4, so I'm figuring he can almost figure out gas brake, so I can build him a go-kart. So I've pre-negotiated that I can build Luke a go-kart with Michelle. So so I'd like to learn some trades.
Yeah.
I just think that would be neat, just the privilege to build things.
Yeah. Have you ever spent any time in like a makerspace or kind of that movement world where you get to build all sorts of stuff?
No, I have not. But we do have a bunch of 3D printers in our lab.
So you've got your own.
So we have, so we do some minor experiments on that kind of stuff, but they're really hard to calibrate. Like, I don't know if anyone tells you, you get the 3D printer and then you have to, next thing you're 3D printing parts to cool the 3D printer, and it's like, but then you can't make them because they overheat. Like, it's a bit of a nuisance. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Find a good engineer.
Okay. Great. So this is obviously a really busy life. 3 kids, rapidly growing company. Do you even think about work-life balance at this point? Does that mean anything to you, or what have you done to invest in kind of quality of life for yourself?
So what's interesting is it's having a great partner is a big part of it. So I 100% could fall out a check from a work-life balance perspective. Because I really do love what I do, and I really care for the people that I work for, both in the customer side and the team side. But when it comes to kind of managing that balance, a couple things. Number one, Michelle's indifferent. So if the company grows 10%, it shrinks 30%, or grows 100%, she's like, are you happy, right? And do I see you enough? Are the really two simple questions that she asked. So the couple things that I did was like just even fitness, just right, because it was with the kids and everything else. I was kind of almost kind of watching kind of my health slip away. So I basically every morning I'm fully. It doesn't matter. No one. I work out. Michelle kicked me out of the house. Lisa, my assistant, will not let anyone book that time. And then since having the new baby, also, so Michelle and Lisa basically they work together and they control my schedule. So, and I'm not allowed to book anything. So I just basically go where I'm told, which is great because then I'm not the bad guy, right? Like, oh, I can't make this meeting. It's like, no. Hey, Michelle said I couldn't go, so I'm sorry. So that's actually big. Giving control of that up actually has been extremely helpful because I am totally a yes person. Like I won't say no to anything because I'm opportunistic, right? I have this total thirst for everything.
Well, that was a bit of the question as well. I mean, we often frame this in work-life balance, but if you love what you do, it's easy to kind of see it all interwoven. There's obviously still other things you need to think about, but it's not these two cleaves in
I
your...
hate that. I hate that term even. The work-life, the balance, the whole. What balance insinuates is the fact that you will never have either, right? But if you actually convert your mindset and just say it's work-life harmony, right? And at different stages of your life, you're gonna work more, you're gonna work less, right? And even they can be shorter sprints, or maybe you just really love summers and you really hate winters, and so you work more in the winter and you do whatever. So I think it's really important for people to kind of really do an internal gut check and see what's reasonable for them. And the other thing is, you kind of see like Jason Fried would be another person I really look up to. And his book Rework, he has this mentality of like fire the workaholics, and what that is underneath that is you don't want people that gauge themselves from a relative perspective. You want people that can kind of look within themselves and figure out where their harmony is, and even attraction, sometimes we run into it where people feel obligated to work longer hours because certain people are working longer hours. And you kind of got to pull them aside and say, like, no, like everybody does what's right for them, right? Like we have a lot to get done as a business. You can't let your team down, but a number of our developers will be fairly ineffective during the day and very effective in the evenings. Yep. That's just how they operate. Yep. So they might be sitting down drinking beers in the middle of the day, and that's that, right? But everybody gets their work done. Yep. So I think it's just trying to be adaptive to that.
Yeah, and again, it folds back to the culture question a bit, and you can tell people to do all you want, but if you're in there 22 hours a day, it's hard for them to figure out how to take any space as well.
Yeah, actually, that has been a good one. Is with a little bit more with the kids, especially wanting to make sure I'm very present for the kids and for Michelle. Me leaving the office at 4 or 5 every day that for sure had a pretty profound impact on people, just feeling that they could leave as well. Mm-hmm. But when I was working until 9 or 10 every evening before we had kids, it definitely put a little bit more pressure on everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. I could keep asking questions all night, but I know we've got a few questions also from the group here. We selected a couple in advance, and I think we'll probably have some time for a little open time as well. Jesse, I don't know where you moved to. Do you want to ask your question? I'll repeat it just so the cameras can hear it. So the question, what advice would Greg give to students who don't quite know what they want to do with their future?
So the first thing I would say is acknowledge the fact that nobody knows what they want to do with their future.
Totally.
And break it all into smaller steps. But the other part of that, which could kind of maybe bring that to another more practical level, is try things. Just little steps, right? Just experiment and keep stock of what you like and what you don't like, and break everything down into a bit of a raw kind of like, are you a builder? Are you a perfecter? Like, what is your why? So, and kind of come to terms with it. Don't expect your personality is not going to change. So there's actually a cool book called The Why Engine, which is a really helpful guide to kind of figure out what your inner kind of drive is. Are you a perfectionist? Do you like to do things differently? Are you all about the process? Mine is basically always improving, never satisfied. So basically what that means is I will never be happy. I will never be fully fulfilled and be like, oh, yes, I'm done. I will never be done. But so the thing for me in my journey was, I worked in sales teams, I worked in marketing roles. I tried all this stuff, and where the entrepreneurial opportunity really truly came together was when I fused them all together, right? And had I not worked for people who were entrepreneurs, worked for people who were absolutely not entrepreneurs, I wouldn't have understood that. I don't think I would have nearly the confidence I have now, and I wouldn't have really been able to define what I liked. So if you are considering to be, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to run a business, don't feel like you have to do that every step. Most phenomenal entrepreneurs worked for phenomenal people, found what they loved, found great mentors along the way, and you don't have to roll the dice. Like, it's not like, okay, now I'm all in, I'm gonna mortgage my house, and like, take small steps. Like, my whole journey is small steps, and it certainly, I have this video the guys did for me, and it aggregates the last 5 years of photos of traction into 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's actually almost paralyzing seeing it. And but every one of those photos represents just a really small step. Like, there was one point where we were in a little warehouse in Port Moody. The guys from TransLink came in, knocking on the door. They're like, we just bought this building. So you guys are going to have to get out of here soon. We're going to knock it down somewhere between one month and 12 months. And so I'm like, and there are three people at Traction at the time. There's a wakeboard boats and a couple fish tanks. I'm like, this is a burgeoning software company. You can't do this. So the guy looks at me, he's like, look, tell me how much money you need to move, and if it's reasonable, we'll write you a check. And if it's unreasonable, we'll just kick you out tomorrow. So we made this big spreadsheet, and it was $30,000 for us to move. And so I gave it to him. He's like, reasonable. So then we bought a little cabin in Port Moody, and that was like, this is going to be the biggest crazy. Like, this is crazy. We'll never fill up this 1,300 square foot cabin ever. But then what was interesting is the money that we made in that little cabin created $200,000 in extra free cash for the business, because when we sold it, and we invested that in hiring more people. So it's just, there's no way I could have ever prescribed my journey. So is that helpful a little bit? It's a little bit all over the place, but.
That's good. I like that we're all just kind of making it up. Nobody quite knows exactly what they're going to do with their life.
Totally.
Yeah. Shawn, I'm looking at your question. Where are you, Shawn? Yeah, you feel like it kind of answered? Yeah. It was particularly around, as a 5-person company, how did you start landing those first clients when you were that small?
Yeah. People. Like, I actually, this flight out to get the award and back, I was with my second team member, Arnold, and we were writing thank you cards to the customers that we felt took significant risks and real chances, and we wrote 100 thank you cards for those people. So, and we're sending them all these kind of really kind of nice custom hoodies that we made, because it's like, Brad Pruner at TELUS. We were 6 people, and he basically gave us the keys to the kingdom to build TELUS's B2B CRM. Like, who does that? Even today, I'm like, why did you do that? He's like, you just seem like really nice guys. I just figured you weren't going to really let us down, right? And so it's just, it's all people, all people.
Great, thank you. Milad, you had a question?
So what opinion do I have that most people would disagree with me on? Fair? Yes. Oh gosh. I'm going to take just, I don't know I'm just debating which channel to go on. That's a really good one. I would say it's going to be, man, that's a good one. I'm like, I'm in 15 places in my head right now. But the best one, I just want to give you like the keeper.
Even the BCorp example jumps out at me. I mean, it seems like normal in our world, but the vast majority of companies are clearly not thinking that direction. I'm sure you got others.
Yeah, I think there's I don't believe in venture capital. I don't believe in letting second-tier entrepreneurs invest in businesses before they're ready. So I believe in just the gentleman that was talking earlier and showing the 3D printer and the iterating, and I think that's one of the key things is people so often think that I'm going to get a great idea and then I'm going to find someone to give me money and then I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But that's not what being an entrepreneur is. Being an entrepreneur is about getting an idea and doing it and pushing it as far as you possibly can to the point where you're absolutely at a brink of not, and then finding family to help you, and then finding maybe like if there's, and kind of going through that stage. And so there's a great story, local story, Jack Newton, who runs Clio, which was, they went down that path. Now venture money came much later, so there is a time where you just need an accelerant and your friends don't have a few $1 million to throw at you, right? But I really believe in bootstrapping, and I think that we've got it a little bit wrong with a lot of the incubators right now.
Yeah, I think particularly the metric that raising money is a bar for success. Like, it's the fuel to do the things that are the success.
People people can easily sniff out if you're building a business to make money, like if it's just about money. But if you're building something because you want to make a monumental change, or you want to actually do something, they rally behind you.
Awesome, thanks. I think we got time for a couple more. So we actually polled the class for questions ahead, and I've got about 150 to choose from. But I had a couple people approach me earlier, so hands up if you had a question. I think, yeah, you go for it. School of Hard Knocks.
School of Hard Knocks. It's the best school of all. So School of Hard Knocks is basically when you're at the point of, actually, like my first, it's my SFU story. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this one to SFU students.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
It's okay.
Not your story, but like all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so my first School of Hard Knocks story one of the biggest ones actually was 1.54 after my first semester, academic probation. I'm hitchhiking up Curtis, which is no longer a street that exists for up the hill because they've changed all the roads. I get picked up by this guy who's running he runs the kinesiology program at SFU. And at the time, I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor. I was kind of swimming kind of on the B team for SFU varsity. I'd just impinged both my shoulders, and so I had this amazing, inspiring story of how I wanted to build a sports medicine clinic that would help athletes, kind of preventative, blah blah blah. And so he actually said it was a fundamental, and this is where the School of Hard Knocks comes in. So this guy says to me, he goes, "Wow, you have a really interesting decision, probably one that you should make today. Do you want to run it or do you want to work in it?" Super simple question. That's all he said, right? And I left and I went to the business faculty, and I'm like, I want to be in business. And they're like, "You're not going to be here in 3 months, so I think this conversation's over." So then I went to Maureen Fazell, who's I think still involved or was.
She's still here.
Yeah, and talked to her, and she was just kind of lent an ear, and she told me to go talk to the dean of business, Larry Pinfield at the time, and so I went up and we made a deal. And the deal was I had to be a president of 2 SFU clubs, and he would sign a document, and he would that would allow me to audit a class, and basically I'd have to show my transcript to the professor within 2 weeks, and they would have to allow me as an overage to their current course load. And I had to do that for every single business course for 3.5 years. Every professor. And everyone let me in. But I had a routine. I'd sit right there, And I'd be like, me, right? And then I'd be like, I'm not really in your class. I just need you to sign this pink slip. Don't mind the numbers on the side. They're going to only get better. It's that type of adversity. Like, I sure wish I wouldn't have done so poorly in the beginning. It would have been, I could have focused that energy maybe elsewhere. But that defined me. That taught me how to negotiate. And so I think that the thing is, you have your structured education, but then there's forcing yourself into situations where there could be imminent failure and not being scared of that. And that's School of Hard Knocks.
It's interesting when you try and trace the path, entrepreneurial tendencies, way back there as well. You're like, I'll figure out a way.
Yeah, there's got to be a way.
I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've got time, if we're relatively quick, for one more.
Okay, so you kind of touched on this briefly about the marketing and sales teams and how they kind of go head to head.
Yep.
What did you find was the biggest conflict? You mentioned accountability. How does your system...
So at the end of the day, the system's basically, it captures all the data, so you can see all the history on an individual as they kind of raise their hand or generate or show interest. So then what happens is there's a whole bunch of service level agreements between the sales and marketing teams that actually does kind of a countdown. And then if the sales team doesn't action the lead, it notifies both parties. So that's basically how it just drives that accountability. So it's transparency. That's all it is. But the other thing that was really important, and this is less about the system, more the process. And the big thing is, systems and process go hand in hand, right? So the most wonderful thing to learn and book I've ever read in business is The Goal, which is a book on the theory of constraints. It's basically for manufacturing companies, written in the 80s. It's kind of a cool story. It tells a story about Cub Scouts, fat kids, skinny kids. But the one thing we ended up doing is we realized that the problem wasn't in just the handoff. The next challenge was the sales team would say, well, these aren't the leads that I want, right? So then we said, great, you pick them. So you pick the organizations that you want us to basically deliver marketing materials to, and then we would target them, and we wouldn't give them any more unless they delivered on the first batch. And then, and this was actually the funnest part, I rented a Lamborghini Gallardo for a weekend and gave $5,000 cash to the rep that performed the best using these programs. And we would do that every once in a while. I'd always show up a little early to pick up the Lamborghini. And this was actually in Atlanta. And but what that did is it allowed also the other reps would see, like, wow, like the top performing rep is the person who uses these programs, right? And so it drove a culture around it. So it was all those things. So the system was important. The system allowed us to see whether or not things were working and how people were performing. But it was all the process and the motivation that actually drove the fundamental change. And that became just, in the beginning, that was just a rinse, and that was actually the program that I sold over and over and over and over again. It wasn't always Lamborghinis, it was different things. Always kind of quite novel.
All right. I could keep asking questions, and I think people could keep listening. We're officially out of time. Cool. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
thanks
guys.
Greg.
Yeah.
And you spoke earlier about sending thank you cards to all of your hardest working clients, in a sense. The class I don't know if they all managed to fit. I told them to write really small. The whole class signed thank you card for you as well.
Thank you, guys.
So thanks very, very much for coming in.
Yeah.
And just one more round of applause. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much.